My name's Jacqueline Apsler, and I really want to welcome you to our program tonight, Caught in the Web, and is the internet safe for our youth, and how can you do more to help protect our youth from online abuse? I'd first like to thank very much my subcommittee from the Concord Carlisle Domestic Violence Round Table that worked tirelessly on putting this program together. I think they're all sitting in the back, which isn't fair, but we have Sally Lopez from Emerson Hospital, Mary Jane Nichols from the Network for Women's Lives, Marilyn Peterson from our organization, Domestic Violence Services of Central Middlesex, and our two legal beagles who are hiding in the back there, Jim Tabner and Derry Holt. So thank you all very much. I'd also like to thank our other co-sponsors who did quite a lot to promote this program for us, including the Sudbury Wayland Lincoln Domestic Violence Roundtable, the Bedford's Violence Prevention Coalition, Acton Boxborough Coalition for Healthy Youth, the Concord's Community Youth Alliance, and also Concord's Center for Parent and Teachers. And I'd like to emphasize the work that everybody has done because we really want to model the concept of collaboration, which we feel is really vital and important around community effort. A special thank you goes to the Rape Treatment Center in Santa Monica, California, for the Santa Monica UCLA Medical Center for the donation of these wonderful brochures that you have in front of you. In addition, I'd like to thank our panelists and our speakers for the kind of time and expertise that they're giving us tonight too, so you'll be able to enjoy this program and learn important information. October is the Domestic Violence Awareness Month, and the Concord Carlisle Domestic Violence Roundtable believes very strongly in the fact that awareness, raising, and education are the first steps to prevention. In addition, they believe strongly that collaboration and strengthening our network of resources and services help to provide better solutions for our victims. And finally, and importantly, they like to work together with youth, with our parents, our educators, guardians, and Youth Alliance agencies so that we can, in fact, help adults and children learn about developing healthier relationships. Tonight's program, in particular, is on internet safety that highlights the internet as the next frontier of relationship building. It is no longer enough to tell our children to avoid strangers they see but don't know. We must help them learn to interact safely with strangers they don't see and think they know. The internet is a portal to every corner of the world. There are no boundaries, there are no jurisdictions, there are no town lines, and there are no signposts. It is imperative that we understand its incredible reach and how seductive it is for our children. Tonight's keynote speaker, District Attorney Jerry Leone, a professional dedicated to community solutions and collaborative efforts, is on the forefront of complex and important issues like domestic violence and internet safety. His recent press release detailing the new Cyber Protection Initiative is in your packet in your brochure. Tonight, D.A. Leone will define the problem for you and talk about what he sees as solutions that are community-oriented and collaborative in nature. District Attorney Jerry Leone.
Thank you, Jacqueline. What I'd like to do is just talk to you about why I think this is one of the greatest challenges we face in keeping our kids safe. Talk to you a little bit about what that challenge is, and then talk to you for a little while about what we're doing in the DA's office. You know, I firmly believe in this day and age that one of, if not the biggest challenge to keeping our kids safe is knowing about and employing different ways to approach online and internet abuses of children. Now, this topic is of particular importance to me, not just as a professional, but personally as well. You know, professionally, as your district attorney, I take it very seriously to protect and serve everybody within our county. And there are a lot of different ways that I do that, and that we do that collectively, and a lot of different strategies and approaches we employ. But you know, I'm also a parent. My kids, Tommy is 7, Julianne is 10, and believe me, there isn't a night I don't come home and see the two of them on the computer and think about what I'm dealing with at work. Think about the different ways that we're trying to keep kids safe, knowing about all of the different vulnerabilities that the internet creates for us in this day and age. And from a personal and a professional perspective, I fully understand, I fully appreciate the vulnerabilities and the exposure that our kids have. Let me just take a little time to talk about this challenge that we face. And I've got a couple of very stark examples that I hope are going to drum home very quickly what we're talking about when I talk about internet safety and some of the challenges we face. The world of the internet is dynamic, it's fluid, and one of the biggest problems is it's anonymous. And it's one of the biggest reasons why we have predators who are using the internet and using the way of cyberspace to prey on our children. One of the biggest reasons that they can do that and they feel empowered to do that is the anonymity of the internet. I have a couple of PSAs I'd like to play for you. These are about 1.5 minutes long each. If we could just load those up. Both of these PSAs were ones developed through Project Safe Childhood, which is a federal program. It's a federal initiative. It's one that our office is tied into. And these PSAs, in large measure, address posting images on the internet. And I wanted to bring them with me tonight just to show you about how these exhibit the stark nature of the problem we're dealing with and what kids, especially kids in the middle school age and high school age, should not only be aware of, but avoid.
Hey, Sarah. Oh my gosh, he's so cute. How do you know him?
Come on, Donovan, do it like I taught you. Love the new tattoo, Sarah. Let's go!
Dude, what? Dude, that's Sarah. The girl in the pink shirt. That's the girl I was telling you about.
Oh, that's Sarah?
Theater 2 on your left. Hey, Sarah. What color underwear today?
Hey, Sarah. So when you want to post something new?
Anything you post online, anyone can see. Family, friends,
See you later, Sarah.
even not so friendly people. Think before you post.
Compound A, 46.7% by weight. Compound B.
Once you post your image online, you can't take it back. Anyone can see it. Family, friends, anyone. Remember, think before you post.
You know, when you see these images, I think, all of us can intuitively understand the problem that we're talking about here. Operationally, and you'll hear from some of the experts when we break down into the P. Post something, and you post an image of yourself, don't ever expect you're going to get that image back. And you absolutely cannot know where that image is going, who's looking at it, or what they're doing with it. And I like those two PSAs, and I like kids to see those two PSAs, because it absolutely drills home to them what happens if you post an image. Even if you think it's of limited duration, even if you think it's of limited nature and scope when you post that image, it isn't. You don't know who's looking at it and what they're doing with it. So I always like to show those images to kids because I really think it exhibits one of the large problems of kids experimenting with the internet and posting images. I want to combine those images with just a couple of statistics. at any given time. Break that down by state, okay? 1,000 sexual predators at any given time. When you consider the nature of the state that we live in, the availability and the usage of electronics to be much higher than that. So you combine those 4 statistics together, it's troubling. Combine those statistics with the images that you saw, it's extremely troubling. And I'd ask you to do this. Consider the images that we saw on the PSAs, okay? Consider these statistics and combine that with 5 facts I'm going to give you. 1, these days, young people are exposed to and they have access to more information and more images than ever before. And those images can be violent images, they can be explicit or suggestive images. 2nd, young people are impressionable. They'll experiment with that which is new and that which is unknown. That's an obvious factor to those of us who don't even have kids. 3rd, the internet's not going anywhere. If anything, the internet and cyberspace is only going to become more and more necessary in our lives, especially as a communication mechanism and especially as a learning tool. The 4th fact I'd ask you to consider, the anonymity and the omnipresence of the internet. This has created a haven. It's created a haven for those people who will prey on our kids and other vulnerable victim communities. And having been a professional prosecutor for my entire career, I can tell you what people are looking for who are inclined to do bad things are vulnerabilities. And the internet and cyberspace is a perfect haven for them. Why? Because in large measure, they have anonymity, and they can predate with anonymity. The last fact, as the internet becomes a more permanent way of communicating in our lives, it is going to continue to be the choice for predators. It's a weapon. It's a way of them preying on vulnerable communities. The images, the statistics, and those 5 factors, when we roll all of those together, I hope I've convinced you this is absolutely not an area we can ignore, but one we need to prioritize. So what do? I never like to identify a problem or an area that troubles me without providing a solution. And this solution we've been working on since I took office 9 months ago. Let me tell you some of the things we're doing. The 2 keys is prevention and protection. There's a front end to this, which is prevention. And it's prevention through intervention, it's prevention through education, and it's prevention through training. It's education and training not just to the professionals, not just to the people who are engaged in public safety and law enforcement, but it's parents, it's people like yourself who care, and it's children. Why? Help kids keep themselves safe, but help parents keep kids safe. Who else? Other people who are part of the partnerships with us. We have a robust school-based intervention prevention program that I'll say more about in a moment. But the education and training that we're engaged in is all throughout the county and on a number of different levels. This is key, and that's what we're going to spend most of our time tonight talking about, is prevention, the education and training component. The other part is enforcement. Enforcement of the laws in this area, development of the laws in this area, so we absolutely protect our kids. And enforcement means investigation and prosecution. But it's not just one without the other. Throughout our office, throughout the programs that we're building and that we continue to develop, there is that front end of education, training, intervention, and prevention, and the back end, which is prosecution and enforcement. And believe me, I would much rather front load our efforts and minimize and decrease what we have to do on the back end. I'd love to be out of business, but I got 41,000 cases in Middlesex County, 40,000 cases in the district courts. We have 12 of them. We're one of the largest counties in the country. We've got over 1,000 serious and, in large measure, violent offenses that we prosecute in the superior courts in this county. Believe me, I would love to reduce that by spending our time partnering on the front end. When you roll all what I've talked about together, I think you'll see why it was easy for me to prioritize a cyber enforcement program when I came into office. We've spent the first 9 months building a couple of programs, which I'm going to highlight for you tonight, but the spoke on the wheel will turn out to be our cyber enforcement program. And I use the word program specifically because it's not just a unit. It's not just a unit filled with people on the law enforcement prosecution side. It's a program because it has all of the levers that we can pull upon to keep kids safe and to get better about what we're doing. We announced the creation of our cyber enforcement program just last month. The spoke on the wheel is our cyber enforcement unit. What we've done is taken an assistant district attorney, named her as the coordinator of our program. She's got expertise in the field. We've combined her skill sets with a state trooper who has expertise in this area. Together, they are creating the partnerships with all the local towns and cities throughout the county from an enforcement perspective. Dana, if you could just stand up if you would. This is Dana Lucchese. Dana has statewide experience and national experience in conducting investigations and prosecutions. She is coordinating our program from an enforcement perspective, but she also has a lot of experience in educating and training, not just law enforcement personnel, but people like yourselves, people who can and need to know more about what we're talking about. Now, this unit that we've formed, very importantly, is going to do a lot of different things. We have a comprehensive approach to this. But one of the most important things our cyber enforcement program will do will be the link to other areas of the office that we've developed. And it's apropos that we're in Domestic Violence Awareness Month, because what I'm going to say next will show you that this all rolls together. At the same time that we've built the cyber enforcement program over the course of the last 9 months, we have built and instituted what I call our Family Protection Bureau. Family Protection Bureau is made up of 3 units: child abuse, domestic violence, and elder and disabled abuse. Why? Because the familial unit is the spoke on the wheel. The paradigm of the abused child is the abused child who will abuse others. We've rolled all 3 of these units under one Family Protection Bureau, the family unit being the key. Why? Because internally we will better be able to deal with these abuses on the enforcement side. Externally, we will better be able to interact with all of the service agencies who deal with all of these abuses, which have as their thread the family unit. So how does that play back into cyber enforcement? The cyber enforcement program sits between those conventional crimes that are created through cyber means and our child abuse unit. We've brought 2 additional troopers in, 2 females with a lot of investigative experience. One of them is embedded in the child abuse unit. The other one is with our cyber enforcement program. All of what we've placed within our cyber enforcement unit is now brought to bear in tandem, hand in glove, with our child abuse unit. So we not only keep kids safe through the usual and conventional means, but we're bringing to bear all of our cyber enforcement capabilities on keeping kids safe in the cyber world. This is the program and the combined programs that we've built over the course of the last 9 months. This is how we're going to keep kids safe. But we need your help. The education and training component, again, is going to continue to reach out into the communities. And the last part of this is our school-based intervention prevention programs. It is long-standing. Some of my former colleagues are here. Some of the present colleagues who are in the district courts are here. They can tell you, we've been doing this for 15 years. When I took office on the 4th, I had been there 2 weeks. My Tommy's birthday is on January 19th. I always remember that date. I unfortunately remember it for another different reason now, too. On the 18th, the night before, I met with all 60 of our district court assistant district attorneys. I told them, you're going back into the schools. Every one of you are going to be responsible for covering the 54 towns and cities in Middlesex County, and they do. They go into the middle schools and high schools, and we meet with every one of those school systems at least once a month. Why is it so stark that I remember it was on January 18th when I told them that, because January 19th, I got paged at 7:20 in the morning, and I was in Lincoln Sudbury High School within the hour, meeting with my old friend, John Ritchie, because a student had been stabbed and killed in that school. Now, that is the stark reality of what we're dealing with in our schools. It is a more conventional crime that we're trying to intervene and prevent. But it's the program that we bring to bear in the schools that will help us reach out in this area of the cyber world and cyber enforcement. It's the other lever that we pull upon. It's those pre-existing partnerships and relationships with the school systems that'll help us partner with you and drill down and reach the kids. And the last component is how we've expanded this very successful high school-based program into the middle schools. Every one of the school systems got a letter from me in June. And we'll be back in September with the assistant district attorneys in every one of the school systems. And not only were we going to be in the high schools, but we want the middle schools at the table as well. And we're spreading that all throughout the county. These are the different programs that we're bringing to bear on this problem. Now, we're going to break down into a panel. I want you to ask a lot of questions. Listen, learn. Let's talk about the issue. On an operational perspective and the number of different things that parents can do, I'll rely on the experts with me to lay that out for you and outline that. But let me leave you with this. The absolute key and the theme and the thread I want to continue throughout tonight is this. It's communication. I don't just send ADAs into the schools. I go myself. I was in Lowell on Friday. I was in Lexington last week. I continue to go to these school-based prevention programs that I built in the 90s. And I'll continue to go into the schools and listen and learn, and the office will reflect listening and learning. Communication is key. Parents with kids, parents and kids with teachers, parents, kids, and teachers with public safety professionals. It's the absolute theme and thread that cuts across everything we're going to talk about tonight. So, thank you. Let's break down into the panels, and let's take up individual issues and have some interplay about what we're talking about. Okay? Thank you all for being here tonight.
The next part of our program is actually an opportunity for you as parents and educators to get a sense of what's really out there that the children are looking at today. We certainly give a little caveat in that things change fast and quickly, but what Robin and Scott Camilleri are going to talk about a little bit is what's interesting about each of these websites and what's attractive to children and why, and youth, teenagers as well. There is a bit of a change in our program in that Chief Weatherby was unable to make it tonight. In fact, he insists that Scott knows more about everything than he does. So, so Scott is in fact going to work with Robin on our next piece of the program. And then we'll have Todd Fenneman who will kind of talk about the bigger and broader perspective as our third piece. And then, of course, we're going to have questions and answers, which is really, I think, why you're here as well. So thank you very much. This is Robin Cicchetti, yes. She's a Concord, I said IT specialist. She insists that she's a media specialist, so I'm pleased to introduce her. She's been working at the Willard School for a number of years. She's trained in the iSafe program, and she's currently working at the high school going forward. Scott Camilleri also will be working with her on this segment of the program, and he also is trained in iSafe. Scott is the epitome of community policing in that he is our liaison to the schools, he's our liaison to the domestic violence programs in town, he's the liaison to the Community for Restorative Justice and to the Council on Aging. So he truly has seen a lot and all, and he has a lot to offer tonight with Robin. So, Robin and Scott.
I am at the high school, and tonight I'm going to talk to you a little bit about how in Concord we've been addressing internet safety. I'm going to talk a little bit about what it looks like from the educational side, where it falls in the frameworks, what the state requires of us. And I'm also going to talk, Jackie asked if I could show you some of the biggest social networking sites. So those are the few of the areas we're going to cover in about a 15-minute presentation. And I want to say Scott and I have been teaching internet safety for 6-7 years. So we've been working together a long time and have presented a few times. So the first thing is you hear all of the horrifying, terrifying crime side of the internet, and oftentimes parents have a reaction, they want to just rip it out and say, keep it out of my house, keep it away from my child. Unfortunately, we're so far past that. You know, that's throwing the baby out with the bathwater. The internet and web-based platforms are a crucial part of school now. You can't tell your child you can't have the internet, because oftentimes their teachers have posted curriculum. Oftentimes there are interactive sites. They have to go online and participate in a blog discussion, or maybe they have to post something to a wiki, and that is something that they're graded on. So the internet is here to stay, and it's a crucial part of what they're expected to, how they're expected to perform academically. They're also organizing their social organizations. Sports teams are now, the kids run them through Facebook. I have at the high school teachers who say, okay, there's an event, will someone post it to the class on Facebook? So these collaborative platforms are key to them being productive and performance-based kids. They're deeply networked into their lives. They also, there are people who use it negatively. You can get into cyberbullying. You can get into some really awful stuff. A few years ago, the middle school reported about 30% of their time a week was spent sorting out problems that came on through IM and all the online activity at the middle school. Kids would be online, they'd get on pretending to be somebody else. Some kid would show up at school, none of his or her friends would talk to them, and the guidance counselor's time was really consumed with sorting out these dramas that were playing out at home. However, they're also doing amazing, wonderful social things. I think about 2 months ago, a 19-year-old posted on Facebook a Support the Monks website. It now has over 250,000 people, and it is the site for posting peaceful protest to support what's going on in Myanmar. So there are bad things, but there are such wonderful things going on as well. So what is social networking? Social networking is the old gossip. Picture yourself back in school, and there's some hot gossip. Somebody just broke up with somebody else at the dance. And it used to play out that the phone would ring. One kid would call the other kid, and maybe some notes would be passed. Well, social networking is now much more immediate and collaborative. So you go online, and I'll show you Facebook in a minute. You'll see how quick you can change things. But the message goes out immediately, and it doesn't go one by one by one. It can go out to 75 people at once, and then they pass it. So it's viral. It's fast, and it's viral. The early social networking, has anybody heard of Webkinz? Okay, about 80% of the hands went up in the audience. Webkinz is an example of how this social networking is spreading right down to our youngest children from the elementary school. They love Webkinz. They get on, they buy their Webkinz, they log it in, and they have this whole life. And it's very structured, and it's very safe because they're not really communicating with somebody. They're responding on pre-selected responses. But you're setting the pattern for going online and social networking. And if you think about if a child at the age of 6 or 7 is building those patterns, what's the next step going to be? So we're seeing this social networking. It used to be professional, then it went to college, and now it's down into our elementary schools. Is it a bad thing? You know, I know Scott would say that the police don't recommend children that young doing it, but this is where we are at this point. I am going to show you Facebook and MySpace. And I also, I heard some laughter when I was mentioning wikis and blogs. What's going on educationally is so dynamic. The web-based platforms are so robust, and they really encourage kids to go online and collaborate in real time. And that's a business model that's proving successful around the world right now. So, you've heard of Facebook and MySpace? Okay. I'm going to give you, I'm probably not going to show YouTube tonight, but it has to be mentioned with these other two. This is a broad strokes generalization. MySpace is more Wild West. There's not a lot of parameters. It is the bigger of the two big social networking sites. It's used by kids, businesses, family reunions, all sorts of things. Facebook tends, again, this is a broad stroke, tends to be more of a college crowd. It has a very different feel. So let's go take a look. MySpace is typically something where new bands will launch music. It's changing the industry quite a bit. You have a band that will put out a video and people can respond on it, and they use it quite a bit to launch record labels. You know, they sell their services. The problem with MySpace, and I don't know if my figures are exactly right, I think it was a few months ago, over 30,000 accounts were revoked because they were from active sex offenders. There are no controls, and kids can create profiles that put a lot of personal information on, and it's wonderful territory for a predator to troll through and communicate privately with anybody who posts. So if you have a 13-year-old child, they can be chatting with people from anywhere in the world who have access to all their personal information. If we go to Facebook, Facebook is a little different. It has a very clean template. Facebook really wants a very special look to their site, and that allows people to have very clean pages, and they're similar. So as you go to person, you get that nice clean white background. It's very Google-like. MySpace, you can have anything. It's very random. It's really much grittier in feel. Every space can look completely different, whereas Facebook, every site looks kind of like this. Now, a big thing is the feed. The feed on Facebook is something that can change instantaneously. You can go in, and I said 6 hours ago, I put that I'm happy that people want to learn more about internet safety. I can change it right now to say people are learning about internet safety. If you look, there are some really amazing features that are very easy to add, and add to that fuel of that collaborative energy that kids really feed off of. What I'm showing you now, this is called a friend wheel. And it takes all of your friends and puts them onto a digital display. I think it's hard to see, but it's like the old, Venn diagram. You can see all my friends are listed here, and they're connected by lines that show how they're related. Now, this is me. I'm 46-year-old. I don't have any friends on Facebook. However, my daughter gave me permission to show her Facebook page. Look at her friendship wheel. She's an average kid. They have hundreds of friends from all different networks of their life, areas of their life. Now imagine when one of their friends, the algorithm for Facebook is that they rate changes in relationship very high. So if somebody in this wheel breaks up or starts a romance or goes out with somebody else, it hits everybody's feed and everybody goes online. So, if you picture that old gossip, that the telephone, Facebook is gargantuan, and it's instantaneous. So it's very, very powerful. It's very seductive, and they really do get very addicted to this. You can send each other gifts if somebody's having a bad day. You can send them a ladybug or flowers. It's extraordinary stuff. So, what does it look like in school? We work from something called standards, state standards by the Massachusetts Department of Education. The standards are driven by MCAS. In Concord, I don't know how much of a Concord audience this is. I think we have mostly Concord people. The standards that address internet safety are found in the health curriculum. Kathy Bowen, our health curriculum coordinator, is a real advocate of being proactive. In grade 3, it shows up in the health strand under personal community health, so you can check your child's report. Grade 4, safety and prevention for online behaviors. Grade 5, safety and prevention. They do not appear anywhere else in a child's report card. There is a national set of standards, but they are not required, and they're not MCAS tested. So until you start to have testing responsibility, you're not really obligated to teach these incredibly important things about internet. Something we have taught, Scott and I have been teaching for a long time, is a curriculum called iSafe. And it's a national curriculum, and it's endorsed by the Department of Justice. Now, I've got this up here. I can show you a little bit on iSafe. These are sort of typical questions that you toss out to grade 5 students in sort of a yes or no format. And I'll let you kind of quiz yourself here. But as you're doing that, I want to tell you a little story. My son came home from working day camp. He was a teenager at the time, and there was a 5-year-old sitting on the timeout chair at the day camp. And he said, you know, what are you doing? What happened? And he said, I was spitting. And my son said, well, why were you spitting? And the kid said, nobody told me it was against the rules to spit. They have to specifically be taught what is okay and what is not. Kids have been in front of parents and teachers on this, making the rules up as they've gone along. We have to specifically teach them where are the lines, what is okay and what is not okay. In iSafe, there are specific curriculum modules, and you can look. These really cover the most important basics in providing kids with guidelines on what is safe, what is right, what is not right. After teaching classes, I have had students come up to me and say, would you help me? I think my older sibling is in trouble. Because they saw these behaviors. They saw their sibling up late at night. Maybe parents have already gone to bed. Sometimes younger siblings have a better idea of what's really going on than parents do. And we have contacted parents if it seemed necessary. So what are you supposed to do? You're a parent. I had a parent say, my child will be so mad at me if I limit their access. You don't have to be their friend. They have enough friends. They need parents who set guidelines here. One of the most important things I would recommend, this is a personal recommendation, is to unplug them from the bedroom. The police firmly recommend that computers with internet access are in common areas. If they do have internet access in the bedroom, you know, take the Ethernet cable, unplug the computer. It's okay. Filters, people say, kids can get around filters. Well, some kids can, but a lot of kids can't. And there's nothing wrong with the kid knowing they have a filter, knowing they're breaking family rules. Setting those roadblocks up is another way to give them structure. And also, little kids will not figure out a way around the filter. So you can stop a younger child from seeing stuff that can be damaging and inappropriate. In schools, you know, these are things we've talked with about parents, really clear and consistent guidelines. Is it okay for them to use Facebook? When is it okay? Do you want them on MySpace? Time limits and consequences. Again, remember throwing the baby out with the bathwater. The response of, okay, no more internet for a month, really isn't going to be reasonable. They can't do that. They rely on it for too much. And it can be risky business. Talk about identity theft. Is your personal information online? What are the risks of predators? What happens if they put everything they like and they don't like on a MySpace page or a Facebook page, and then they're contacted and somebody goes, hey, I like the Red Sox too. And then they can use that information to start a dialogue with the child. This is the iSafe site. They do have a nice feature, outreach for parents. It's a great source to get educated on things. Give yourself some vocabulary in discussing safety online with students. And they do have, I'm going to try and play the video, see how it goes.
Hi, I'm Chris, a junior here at Mount Mansfield Union High School.
And I'm Brittany, also a junior here. We're here to talk about cyberbullying. Bullying and stalking are two types of cyber harassment. Cyberbullying may relate to racial, cultural, or religious differences. It may involve sexual harassment, or may be the result of an online or real-world relationship or friendship gone bad.
The quality of their stuff is very good, and different schools handle it differently. Some schools might have parent outreach and brochures. I personally advocate for a formal curriculum with good materials. And that's my piece.
Scott Camilleri, the juvenile detective and school resource officer for Concord Schools and Concord High School. I thought Jerry Leone's PSA was actually excellent, because when people don't realize, how many have been on MySpace? You don't need an account to go on MySpace. Now, your son or daughter is probably on MySpace, and you don't actually need an account to go on it. You can just log on, as Robin had up there, and if you see it says browse, you can get in there, type in browse, type in you just click on photo, not photo. The age, the lowest you can go is 18. We know there's middle school kids on MySpace. I actually have a 5th grader on MySpace. And then you just type in your zip code, and it says within the last 5 miles, and it'll give you everybody for within 5 miles. And it's amazing what you'll see. Now, the kids know that we go on there, so a lot of them will be blocked. You want to click onto their site, and it'll say blocked. But there's others that don't block, and it's amazing what you'll see. And you'll see the photos of the females. I have a daughter, so I hope you don't mind, of what they're putting up there. And it's because their boyfriends or their guys are, daring them to put something up on MySpace. A lot of times it gets blocked, but it's pretty risky behavior going on at the MySpace. And they brag about what they did. They brag about what they did. Helps me out, okay? I know the camera's running, but there's kids, the camera's running. There's kids drinking on MySpace. I got high school kids drinking. I got them doing a keg stand. I got them doing drugs, okay? And then they post it. And the other part of MySpace is there's a profile you have to fill out. You fill out a profile, your favorite subject, it's like 30 questions, but they're putting their home address. They're putting where they were born. They're putting their date of birth. The next step is, what's the next step for identity theft? Social Security number, okay? So later on down, and once that's up there, as the district attorney said, it's up there. I spoke at a school, a private school, and everybody went and took all, it was a middle school, and they took all the, we had a forum like this, and the parents couldn't believe that their daughters, sons and daughters, had MySpace accounts and was posting stuff. So you can go on and check, and you really should check and see your son and daughter's MySpace profile. And believe it or not, now the high school kids are into Facebook. MySpace is now lame. It's now Facebook because the high school kids want to be in college. The other thing, it's hard because the webcams is so cute and nice. I still do DARE, and I was at the Thoreau School today, tomorrow I'll be at the high school. But that stuff I feel sometimes gives parents a sense of false security because they know that's being monitored and they know it's cute and nobody's going to get harmed. So that's like the beginning of internet for the kids. And then I have a feeling sometimes parents just think, well, it's safe, and safe. And that false sense of security goes through middle school, and they don't realize now they're onto MySpace and Facebook, or maybe in live chat rooms. So you really got to come back in, reel them back in and say, okay, where are you going? What are you doing? Now, some parents, I admit, they have no clue where their kids are. Other parents, they have the keystroke. They know what their son and daughter are doing up to the date, minute. They can get software on it, that's the trust factor. Some parents, they can download everything their son or daughter has been and what they've told their best friend. So it goes from one extreme to the other. What was I going to touch on? I think that's it. There'll be questions, and I'm sure there'll be questions that we can touch on. I don't want to take any more time.
I would like to introduce Todd Finneman. Oh, thank you, Scott. And Robin. I'd like to introduce Todd Finneman, who is actually a principal investigator. Principal investigator, I got it right, at Fidelity Investments. But I'd say more importantly, was a former police prosecutor and police officer in Acton, also a school resource person and involved with all of these issues even way back then. Yeah, okay. But he'll talk a lot about what he saw then and also how it relates to what he's doing now in the big world.
Thanks, Jack. Thank you very much. I was facing this way, but everybody who knows about Webkinz, was that a lot of people? The one thing about Webkinz that bothers me is I have a 10-year-old daughter. She keeps the room on Webkinz cleaner than she keeps her own room. And I'm sure it's just ridiculous. So thank you for having me tonight. I was sitting here thinking of all the great subjects that we could talk about, and Jerry did a great job covering it, and Scott as well. One of the things, briefly about me, I was an Acton police officer for 13 years. I was a youth officer, school resource officer, police prosecutor. I went to law school and I practiced law for about 6 years. I'm now a recovering defense attorney. Moved on to Fidelity Investments where I do internal investigations. So I have so much to talk about as far as the internet goes, but I think speaking from my own experience as a parent of 3 kids, as Jerry did, and as everybody that's here tonight, we don't have all the answers. I don't have all the answers. I by no means am an expert, but perhaps something that I say, that Jerry says, that Scott says, that Jacqueline says, that you parents say, all of us together, we can keep our kids safe, and I think that's the most important. I am learning, I think, as fast as my kids are about the internet. Scott had mentioned something briefly as we were standing off to the side before the program started, about how parents come into the police department, as they did when I was in the police department, every Saturday looking for the list of sex offenders that are within a certain radius of their house. And certainly that information is important. It's important to be aware of what's going on in your neighborhoods and in your state. However, the biggest sex offender could be right in your child's bedroom. If that computer is in your child's bedroom, if it's anywhere that you're not monitoring it, the predators, as Jerry stated in his presentation, they're out there. We really have to monitor. We really have to be careful. Even innocuous sites such as Google. My son, I have a 7-year-old son, and a brief story, I hope I don't embarrass him too much, but he started baseball last fall, and he needed to get protective gear for his uniform. So unbeknownst to me, he went down to our computer, and shame on me, we have a laptop in our family room. My wife was probably busy in the kitchen. He Googled boys' underwear. You can imagine what it came back with. So something as innocent sounding as boys' underwear produced some really disturbing websites. So I think it's very important, and I can't stress enough the importance of monitoring your children's use and being aware of where they're going on the internet. Click on that history button, see what kind of sites they've been at. I am certainly Webkinz. I know that my daughter, she'll be sitting there doing her Webkinz room, cleaning it, of course, and a ding will go off, and I'll say, "What was that, Jill?" And she said something like her friend just bought another couch or something like that. So there is some interaction going on. She's aware of what her friends are doing. She has about 15 of them. I don't know why she needs another new one because it just came out. But they're all over the place. My son wants them now. I have a 5-year-old daughter as well. So really be careful, I think, because that is certainly starting the future of Facebook and of MySpace. From a corporate perspective, most of my job involves policing, for lack of a better word, the 42,000 employees throughout the world of Fidelity. But you can imagine what type of importance computers plays in my job, and certainly in Fidelity's. Technology is really what we're all about. Not just the cyber crimes, the Nigerian scams, the emails you get saying, "Send me $1,000 and I'll send you back 100,000. We deal with those every day. But just from your kids' future perspectives, and think about this. One of the first things that our backgrounds group does when we have someone who applies for a job at Fidelity is they're going on MySpace, they're going on Facebook. They're trying to see if they have a page, because the things that are posted, and as Jerry's PSA stated, once you post something, it's there for life. The things that we're finding on people's MySpace pages, and then they're coming to a corporation like Fidelity and applying for a job where they're going to have responsibilities, and you're seeing pictures of them doing the keg stands. It may have been in college, it may have been one time and it was a prank and nothing was meant by it, but it's there. It's there and it's going to be found. And it's not going to be found just by their friends. It's really hard for kids to think about the future, and I certainly understand that, living day to day, to make them think about the actions that they do now may affect them for the rest of their lives. But that's what the internet is all about. It's here to stay. However, that's good and that's bad. So the things that they're thinking about, if you tell them, don't post a picture of yourself on the internet, it can come back. It's going to be very hard to understand that, son, in 10 years you're going to apply for a job and somebody might see that. But they might think of that one time. Use whatever tools you can to have a teachable moment. so that people understand that this is a great tool, the internet. It has its good and its bad, though, and they certainly need to understand that. My son, the other example I wanted to give to you was, I think you have to teach by example as well. And I'm certainly an offender here, because what I found myself doing one day was, I think, signing up for iTunes. I wanted to download some music, and my son was there with me, very interested in it, and it popped up with a screen that asked for my name, my phone number, my address, the type of car I drive. I mean, it was crazy. But I started filling it out because I needed to register my iPod. And my son Tim asked me, "Dad, why are you doing that?" And I said, "Well, I'm trying to get on iTunes here, and I wanted to buy a couple of songs." And he said, "You always told us, don't give out that information on the internet." Great point, great point. A 7-year-old taught me a lesson on the internet. So then I had to try to explain to him that, there are some times that you can be safe, and when you're older, you can make good decisions. But I use that as a teachable moment. Now, I didn't get my songs. I just, wiped off my address and everything else, and I'll do it some other time. So, as you all know, the kids know more about the computers than we do. When I was in the police department, I think it was a novel concept to have a computer, and I think that was like 1992. So you can only imagine how far technology has come since then. Email every day of our lives. Email has almost become passé as far as Fidelity's corporation is. It's all about instant messaging. I mean, we still use email like everybody else, but our employees are using instant messaging more than they're using email. So it's very important for you people to understand and keep up to date with the technology. Same time, AOL, all those different Yahoo, understand those types of conversations are just like email in a way that they can be logged. So those can be captured. Those types of conversations can also come back. Not so much, not as easy as a MySpace account and not as easy as a FaceTime, but any conversations that people are having, just like you could pull up an email. We see it every day. Someone's running for office, running for president, and out comes a message they sent 20 years ago on email. Everything can come back to haunt you. Use those as a teachable moment. Just like when you're on MySpace, if you're posting a picture, what you say on the internet, once you hit that send button, it's out of your control. Just like Jerry's PSAs. So words, pictures, everything else. I think that the children need to understand the permanence of what they're doing on the internet. And I by no means want to scare everybody. The internet is a wonderful tool. Speaking from a corporation that spends billions of dollars on technology, what we would do without the internet, computers, we wouldn't be the company that we are today. However, they have good and they have bad. I think throughout my career, I remember starting as a police officer, we used the computer to investigate crimes. As a defense attorney, I was using the computer and the internet to help defend against people who were prosecuted because they put things on same time, on FaceTime, on MySpace, all the different sites. One particular case, in a drug case, just for example, we had a possession case, and the student, well, it was a student at the time in high school, was on FaceTime. Can everybody see me? I'm sorry, I didn't mean to stay in the front. Was on FaceTime using drugs, and that actually became a piece of evidence because the person that he was with at the time was the one who did the selling. So from a law standpoint, again, the permanency of the pictures, I think, is what everybody really needs to understand, and you really need to teach your kids. This is a great tool. Social networking is always going to happen. As Jacqueline said, as everybody else has said, Robin, gossip is always going to be there. It's just a different form. But I think we just really have to be safe and understand that it's not just law enforcement's job. It's not just the district attorney. It's not just the teachers. It's not the schools. It's not just the parents. But the three of us together, I think, can have an impact on our kids. We can keep them safe because, number one, we all have them, and it's important to keep them safe every day that we can. Happy to take any questions that you have. Really appreciate everybody coming out here tonight. These seminars, I think I was speaking to Jacqueline earlier, for doing them for 16 or 17 years, and it's great to see all the parents and different faces. This room may not be filled, but you being here tonight speaks volumes to your kids because they know you're here tonight and that they know that you care about them. Not that the ones that aren't here don't care, but the ones that are here tonight care a little bit more. It sends a strong message to your kids that this is important to you. Thank you very much.
Anybody have a question? Yes, the lady, white blouse.
Okay, the question was about, did we have filters on our computer at the time of this Google search, and Google is so prevalent. We did not have any filters. My son got to see, I think he got the list of sites, and then he clicked on a site, and it was halfway down the screen, and it turned out to be, it wasn't like the Sears catalog. This was really something on, borderline pornographic, so we did not have any filters. However, Google has a lot of filters, and thankful for that. You can shut them off, and those were on at the time, but it's the search terms that we have to be careful for. I mean, boys' underwear is really, really innocent to us. It does, and I don't want you to think that he got a full, XXX pornographic site, but what he got was, I think it was someone's personal website who had a fetish for boys' underwear, so it was not filtered. Yeah. Some of them do and some of them don't. Again, when you have a very innocent search term, what you get back, there are probably 750,000 pages where it had the mention of that term in it. So I think the lesson we learned is really to be close to our kids and monitor what they're using. What I've said to Timmy, don't put that in Google. To me, I think I look at the world with rose-colored glasses. I didn't expect anything bad.
In one of the handouts, the question was, is there filtering software that you recommend, right? Right. I wouldn't endorse any one because a lot of it is what you're comfortable using and what suits you and your family and your choices. But in the handout, I put in the website of a filtering review site, and it lists all the top family filters, specifically for people with children. And go and take a look, just compare, see what looks right and comfortable for you. Yeah, the question was, some filters give away things like specific language that's being filtered, and how do you prevent that? Again, it's not perfect. A filter's always going to be a kludgy tool, but it's better than the alternative. It's not that MySpace has caught up a bit, that you can put some controls on. The big difference is the culture of both sites. MySpace has really been a very unregulated culture. The way Facebook started, it was launched at the Ivy League schools, and you had to be invited in. So there was a personal accountability. I had to apply for an account, and I had to say someone who already had a Facebook account, Joe, would you okay me as one of your friends? So that culture kept it a little more honest, if you will. In Facebook, you can have people, pretending to be somebody else. It's very easy to try and pull a fast one on somebody. That's why it has been a more comfortable environment for predators. I'm sorry, MySpace, than Facebook. That said, Facebook is far more open than it used to be. So, there's no place that's safe, and there's really isn't any accountability. But the culture hasn't yet really degraded. Yeah, if you go to Facebook, if you Google Facebook and you apply for an account, you have to ask somebody in. And they would get a message saying, Judy Smith has friended you. Would you accept them or not? And then I have an opportunity. I can set controls. I can say, yes, I'll let Judy in, but I'm only going to let her see a limited profile. Or I leave my profile open to the world. So you have some control over the degrees. My personal friends, I'll let them in and see my full Facebook. Or I can say, you're just going to see my picture, and then you can email me separately. Well, what happens is, if I have my friends, all my 9 friends, you can click and see all the people I have as friends. Then you can access them through me. So when you see that friend wheel, that really is how they interact. So I can go to somebody, link through somebody else's friends. I'll say, oh, that guy's really hot. And then I can friend them, and they see, oh, you're a friend of that other person I know. And so it's very interactive. Yes, but I'm a portal for them to reach other people. Does that make sense? No. Right. Here, you...
Again, even though you don't have a MySpace account, you can still browse and look around, and you'd be amazed what you see. Facebook, you can't browse unless you're a member of Facebook. And I always tell parents, you should Google your son and daughter's name once a month. Seriously, see what, you know, what's going on. In case one of the kids, middle school or high school, has taken their name and thrown it onto an account, you know, type of thing. One more thing, when we talk about, when you have the kids, and I teach in the internet safety class, if I tell the kids, the lower grade levels, if something comes up, to go to mom and dad, okay? Not to be embarrassed if they get a picture, you know, nudity. If they get that picture and it comes up on their computer, you know, to go tell mom and dad, not to be embarrassed, and they're not going to get in trouble type of thing. Mom and dad will, you know, show you what you did wrong, if you did anything wrong, and fix the computer type of deal, all right?
Yeah, it's similar to the spoke. It really is something that it tries to address all those avenues. There's a parental piece, there's a school curriculum piece, there's a mentor program for high school students to perhaps take some ownership and reach out to younger kids. So again, it's such a big issue. It tries to approach it from as many angles as possible. Yes, there's a parent outreach tab, and there are resources and webcasts and curriculum that you can work on as a parent.
Dana Lucchese is here. She's the coordinator of Cyber Enforcement Program. The big guy back there in the dark jacket, he's in charge of my whole state police unit. He runs the Cyber Enforcement Unit along with Dana. Give us your particular information and we'll look into it right away and we'll see what we can do. If you're hearing you need a court order to address your particular issue, well, that's something that we can help with. As far as the larger issue goes, I was just in Lowell. I was in Lowell Friday afternoon, and I was there in the morning with the schools. And in large measure, what we talked about that morning, we always have a full complement of court-involved kids, other kids who we're talking about because it's really conduct-driven. You're trying to keep kids out of trouble, but unfortunately, there are a lot of kids who are in. And the biggest thing we were talking about that day was protection of the teachers. Teachers were telling me that they were being threatened, and then you'd bring a court case. And the biggest problem for the teachers were, it's all well and good that you're going to bring the court case on our behalf. Our problem is twofold. We have to go to court and confront these kids who are then in large measure going to be returned to our schools and to our classrooms. So we're grappling with that issue now. Sure, there's an enforcement component, but you know, in large measure, what you're enforcing against is not going to take kids out of the schools. So you end up with a tension that is very troubling to teachers, and we're dealing with that as well. So believe me, we are extremely sensitive, not just to that front-end issue that we've been talking about, keeping kids safe through this, but we also know that teachers can in fact be victims. So, you know, don't take whatever answers that you've received as a dead end. I urge you, just give your information. It doesn't have to happen tonight, but Dana and or Matt will contact you. We'll talk to you about your situation, and we'll do as much as we can to address it, your personal situation. Okay? Is there anything else you want to talk about? Any other question for me along those lines, either your own personal situation or with the teachers? And our school-based programs, our partnerships, it's a robust program. Obviously, it's about the kids, but it's also about educators. They're our partners. And my dad was a high school football coach and a teacher. My wife was a teacher. I fully appreciate and understand educators being proxies for parents for at least 8 hours a day, and I know what you go through. So believe me, we're sensitive to that. So let's talk about your situation and do what we can. Each of my three colleagues I know could address that from a different aspect. Who wants to take the first one? Want to take the first one, Todd?
Again, it just goes along with the same lesson that I taught back when I was in the police department, is never give out personal information. Obviously, there are some situations where it's appropriate, you know, perhaps to a police officer, to a district attorney. But again, the permanency of something that goes out on the internet is a lesson that needs to be taught. And the initial lesson is don't give out any personal information, because even if it was true, there's a proper forum for it. So I think it goes back to our foundation of lessons that be careful what you post, don't post anything personal, never give out personal information, because it's really going to be there for a long time. Scott?
I do the internet safety. That's the one thing that I really try and stress is do not give out any personal information. When you do your IM and your IM profile, because everybody has buddy lists, you'll have the All-Cop buddy list, the Willard buddy list, soccer buddy list. In your profile, it should be nothing there personal. It should be all, you know, generic, no home address, et cetera, et cetera. And I also mentioned take it from not only a personal level, you don't give out any family information, and I also mentioned, because we take it a step further, about threats and bullying in the school. So there's no we touch on no personal information and no threats and no bullying in the school, because as Robin said earlier, you know, it used to be pass a note, and by the end of the day, everybody would know the rumor, the hot rumor in school. Now, at 9 o'clock at night, Johnny pushes a button, and 300 kids at the middle school can know what happened. And I always tell the kids, how would you feel if that rumor is about you? So I try and stress it, don't give out anything. But it's hard, once it's out there, though, unfortunately, it's out there. And the kids, as Jerry said, and we keep stressing, the kids don't understand it's permanent. You can't take it back. You know, you can't take it back. It's out there.
Hi, everyone. One thing that I try to stress with people that have children who have any profiles online, whether they are privatized or made public, and does everyone understand the difference between that? Okay, when you get a MySpace page or a Facebook page, since those seem to be the two we're talking about this evening, and they are the most popular with youngsters, you can elect on both of those fora, you can elect to make your page either private or public. So you can either let everyone who goes to MySpace or Facebook see it, or you can elect to only make certain people able to see it. On MySpace, they're called friends. Same thing on Facebook, I think. And essentially, what they do on their profiles is these kids will post, or people, or movies, movie producers, or bands. MySpace started as a venue for bands to get their information, their songs out there, hoping that someone might pick them up, sign them, whatnot. And essentially, these children will put what we call personal information on their profiles. So when I've done internet safety in the past, I've stressed to kids, don't put personal information on your profile. And they're getting pretty good at that. The problem is that they don't understand what is personal. They put information about their team. They put information about their friends. They put information about their likes and dislikes. They put information such as links to family blogs, family websites, links to very commonly to their AIM profile. Does everyone understand AIM? AOL, when you get a profile on AOL, you get a screen name, much the same way you do on MySpace or Facebook. Your screen name can be your true name. It can be any name you make up. I saw Ms. Cicchetti's daughter there. She was named Cricky. Okay, so she has a screen name, Cricky. I'm going to guess that her true name is something different. So they can go by any name they choose when they sign up for their profile. That's their screen name. The kids will often put on their MySpace page or Facebook page their screen name that is their screen name on AOL. All you have to do is click on that link, and it brings you to their AOL profile. And on their AOL profile, they'll have information. So what Mr. Bad Guy will do is he'll go from location to location to location, collecting all of this information about this child. And soon, he's able to map the kid to, say, CBS. Say the kid puts, I love CBS, go Rockets, and then a link to her AOL profile where you find out that she's from Hanover, and then lo and behold, Bad Guy discovers CBS in Hanover, goes to a list of schools in Hanover and finds out CBS stands for a school in that area. I'm just making it up, but it just gives you an example of how this information can become a tool for a bad guy to narrow in on someone in that location. And heaven forbid if he's talking to the kids online, posing as another kid or an adult interested in something that kid is interested in, that could lead to trouble. I mean, most schools, you just go to the website and you can click on directions to. That's how I got here tonight. So it's quite easy for the bad guys to find children, unfortunately, if they really want to, if your child is posting an excessive amount of information. I'm not trying to scare you. I just am trying to encourage you to get involved in your children's lives, as all of the presenters have said tonight, and ask them to show you who is online with them. Ask them to give you a list of the screen names. Ask them to tell you who those people are. My guess is if they are in MySpace and they have 195 friends because they love to gather as many friends as possible, especially the younger kids, it's a big contest, they probably don't know who those 195 people are. So I was working on a case first half of today on MySpace with an officer, and one of the the people had over 500 friends, and I'm guessing he doesn't know 500 people. So that is one thing I would suggest. And I'm sorry, I digressed. What was the original question? I apologize. Pardon? Yes. Essentially, buying that catalog or putting your information, anytime you do something like that, you might store something in your cache, you might store a cookie on your computer that will help you link later to that same website or that information. It might give information out. They might share your information with other places. It's just another way for them to be able to reach you or have a connection with you. Anytime you share your information or put your information online, a credit card number, anything like that, you are running somewhat of a risk. It doesn't mean every time you do that, something bad is going to happen or someone will steal your information. But it's just an example of how it can be used in the future. There are just many tools. One other thing real quick about the Facebook issue. Facebook, one of the problems I see with cyberbullying, which is what you've endured, and I apologize for that. That's very unfortunate. We get a lot of those complaints. Facebook has, when you sign up for Facebook, your profile will give you a screen name and you have to select a network. They'd like you to select a network, which is just a circle of friends. You don't have to select a network, but most kids do. It's either their school or their team or something like that. The same kind of thing can happen on MySpace. The unfortunate thing about Facebook is that when people go to Facebook, they can also select to send these messages. Robin mentioned how they can send each other gifts, which is all well and good, but they can also send each other pretty harassing or offensive messages as well. Facebook gives you many options as applications to send to each other, one of which is whips and chains, one of which is a gay pride button. You can imagine how this can be a problem for the kids that have these pages if someone sends them these gifts. On MySpace, when someone sends you a message like that or blogs to your page, you have to accept it. If you have a private setting, you have to accept that message before it posts to your page, which is it's a good prevention method for cyberbullying. Facebook does not have that ability. You don't have that ability. So on Facebook, we're experiencing a high number of cyberbullying now because kids have pages there and they're getting messages sent to their pages and they have no control over what's being sent to their pages and posted. So that's just one thing important to note about Facebook. Whether or not the kid is private is the child's choice, but of course we encourage to enable any privacy settings that he or she might have.
The question was, I'm going to restate it, other ways to monitor child communication, right? Yeah. As a parent, I know that it's a little clunky, but you can go in into we have Comcast, and you can go in and you can get a printout of communications that list times, who they've called, things like that. You have to go into your account, and it's not necessarily it's not a user-friendly thing, but you can go in and get a lot of documentation about what the activity has been like online. A neat feature is the family locator. Have you heard of this? If you have a family locator, if you have a Sprint phone, you can put the phones in your family on the network, and you can locate them by their phone number, and it's a GPS location, and you can see where the phone is located. So it's a great safety feature if you've got kids who are out driving and there's a problem or they're in a bad situation and they want to get out of the car, you can actually locate them and find them. Now, of course, there's that creepy parent stalker thing. You can follow up on them. But you can't do it anonymously. Their phone actually gets a notice that they have been located. So you can't really be a complete stalker. They'll know.
I don't have a problem with it. And the thing I will mention is the YouTubing. We didn't touch on YouTube. I know a lot of the kids now are filming themselves doing things and then posting it onto MySpace and YouTube. So YouTube, and they're posting it on MySpace or they're posting on YouTube. And some of the stuff they're doing can be sort of dangerous. They are, roof hopping or dumpster diving or, the skateboard tricks. And even other stuff, and that's sort of who can do the most daring type thing, and then they're posting it so everyone can watch it, or even texting it to each other's cell phones.
I was just going to say, I mean, 95% of this is good, and there's always going to be some people that use it for a bad purpose, but there's nothing wrong with you people going home and going on these sites. They're public sites. Go on MySpace, look around, know what your kids are doing. You know, it's cliche, but knowledge is power. See what sites they're on. Dig around MySpace, see how it works, see how it runs, take it out for a spin. The fact that you know, again, just like you're here tonight, it speaks volumes to your kids, okay? It shows that you care.
The question is, how secure are the Yahoo group settings? Are they closed or not?
I'm thinking they're pretty secure because my daughter has a soccer team Yahoo group that I've been trying to get on for 2 weeks. I have no idea when the next game is.
There are a number of different investigative techniques and strategies that we employ. That is pretty consistent with a technique we'll use. But if we're going to use a technique like that, it's because we've had some indicators and factors that point us towards setting up something like that by way of a sting or investigation. We don't just go out, do it blanketly, and try to catch people. There's really an issue of entrapment versus legitimate investigations and enforcement. And we try to walk that line very carefully, and there's a balance that you engage in. So yeah, we certainly use those type of investigative techniques and strategies, but we don't do that without, again, some indicator or some factor pointing us to a particular person before we'll zero in and focus on them. Dana, Murph, anything on that I'm missing? Anything you want to add? Okay. And believe me, we are creative, and we'll continue to get creative to keep people safe. Always a balance, though, against rights and liberties. And believe me, it's a constant balance. We'll be as zealous as we can to protect people, but there's always that balance with how we're going about doing it.
Is there a place that you can go to check and see whether or not the site that your child is visiting has a rating of any sort or has been reviewed? And Google is a great idea. You can always find people blogging about different things online, every subject ever invented. But National Center of Missing and Exploited Children, it's www.missingkids.org. They have a vast amount of resources for parents, law enforcement, everyone. And you could ask them if they have any reports about that website. They may be able to help you with that. Is there any risk on Webkinz? The only thing you should be mindful of is there is an element of chatting or interactive communication on Webkinz. So just be careful who you allow your child to engage in that behavior with. They have to select. Yes, they have an option. They can choose what kinds of things that they want to say to each other. But I would just make sure they're talking to someone the child, who the child is. Who's behind the screen name? I mean, you try to make sure you know whose screen name it is. Again, what child is that? Where do they live? Who are their parents? Things of that nature. But yes, but again, they only get to select. I think they can still only select the things that they want to say. There's it's very limited.
But educationally, they're also getting a false sense of security. They're in an environment where they think they're safe. And then when they outgrow Webkinz and they go into another social situation, are they going to have that same sense of security? Have they really developed the skills to be cautious and to self-censor? It's hard. Developmentally, they're not there. They don't have a sense of consequence. So that's more the concern of Webkinz. I don't think there's necessarily a threat to that site. It's more the pattern of behavior that's being set. That's the thing to be careful about.
Well, let me let the tail wag the dog. We're not here to have you push the panic button. We're not here to tell you that every time your kid logs on that it is likely that they're going to be preyed upon. What we're here to do, though, is get ahead of the curve as quickly as possible in an area where the dangers are pretty vast and pretty wide. So, you really can't quantify it other than to give you a statistic like we did earlier. There are 50,000 predators online at any given time, but what does that really mean? It's difficult to explain or quantify that as far as it relates to your particular child. Look, the bottom line is This is an area with a lot of vulnerability, with a lot of potential danger. But if you employ a lot of the safety mechanisms that we're talking about, then the dangers are very much minimized. You know, I think given the number of people who use the internet, yes, I think it's very small, given the number of people who use it. But, you know, we're taught in our business, worst case scenario. And that's what we deal with, because one incident is too many for us. So that's the approach we take. But yes, you're right. Given the amount of kids who are on the internet and the nature and scope of the usage of the internet, yes, the percentages are probably very small.
And I also think a key message here tonight is not worst case scenario. It really is the permanence of anything being put on the internet by a child. And I don't think kids really understand that. And I think that's part of the message that we're trying to get across tonight, is being very careful about what they do on the internet. Not so much because there is a predator out there, but because of the future impact of that information never going away. And we even touched on it a little bit with jobs or any number of things. So I think that is a real problem. And I think that's something that we should take away with us tonight.